Hello, welcome to race coverage. We're joining Ratio in their pop-up battle. It's the third in the series of battles that they've been setting up in the run-up to the Ikagi racing for Tokyo Week. Tonight we are in the Netherlands on Beers Battle. I'm Riley Harvey with coverage for Virtual Cycling News. I'm joined by Mike Lister, who is also going to be racing tonight. How are you doing, Mike?
Yeah, hi there, Riley. Good evening, everybody. I am doing just fine, although it is a very hot and will be a sweaty one. Yeah, I've got the fans on. I've got some ice blocks behind the fans to try and give me a little bit of extra cooling. But I think very quickly I am going to be a sweaty mess. I've got 40 kilometres today, so it's not going to be a quick one. And I think you've got the better deal tonight, Riley. Just sat there and commentating.
Well, it's always difficult trying to fill in all these gaps when you're pretending to ride hard.
Oh, that's a bit mean. I think when Damon puts the camera on me, ZMS producers, you can certainly see that I'm putting the effort in.
We've got the streams tonight being provided by ZMS Live Stream. It's available on Facebook and Twitch, and it's also on estv.co through YouTube and their own dedicated apps. Lots of coverage tonight, lots of different views, lots of stats coming up on the screen as well. And if anybody's interested, you can go to the Facebook page and you can send a message through which the commentary team can have a look at and we can comment on, or just drop in and say hello, let us know that you're watching.
So there's a few people predicting who they think the winner's going to be. We've got Van Aert, Cavendish, Vingegaard, so I'm sure they're having a rest day today, those guys. So we'll try and provide some entertainment for you. Might not be as quick as it is on the Champs-Elysees, but I'm sure we'll have a few breakaways. It's a little bit hillier. We've got 3 main climbs today, 243 metres of climbing in total. Yeah, we're just about a minute from the start now, and the riders are just lining up on the start line. There I am in my pain cave, pretty calm and relaxed at the moment. But yeah, I'm not sure how long I'm going to look that composed for.
Have we any favourites that you're worrying about, Mike, tonight? Is there anybody in particular that you're thinking is going to be a danger coming up to the finish line?
Well, it looks like we've got quite a few of the regular guys here. Jan Decker, Nick Greenall, Andrei Kajewski, and I noticed that Fleming back as well is on the start line. The Danish rider who's very strong, and he's not ridden for a while, so we'll see how his form is. And we're just about to get going now.
We are underway, and numbers of red there as we quite often start with a sprint from the beginning of these races until things settle down. There was a few riders there left back on the line. Not sure whether that's any technicals or whether that's just some riders who weren't quite able to get in on time, didn't notice the time passing and have just missed the beginning of the race.
I think some of them might have been our cameramen, the camera bots from ZMS.
Yeah,
always
definitely.
A few of those in the race, giving us multiple angles.
We're live on Mike Lister's avatar here, middle of the pack, just enjoying the draft, saving around about 300 watts there when he's right behind someone's wheel. Massive watt saving.
I did have my second COVID jab this morning. So got a bit of a sore left arm, which is obviously going to hamper my ability to sprint. But we'll see if there's any other lingering impacts. So far, so good though. I had the first one a couple months ago, and I didn't have any major repercussions from that. So hopefully, I should be all right.
It's a good tactic that Mike, getting the excuses in early. I do like that.
Well, I didn't want to say it, but just dropping it in there. We'll see how I'm doing after this first climb. It comes pretty early. about 2.5 k's into the race. There's a little bit of an 8% section, nothing in double digits though. It's about 50 to 60 meters of climbing. So we'll see how my form is once we reach that little climb, which is about 1 kilometer away now.
So the Ratio Racing boys are, it's their race that they've set up. They're working hard in these races. They're riding in the black watt bike kits with the red helmets, so they're quite often at the front of the race trying to create movements. Easy to spot though in this field.
Yeah, they've got numbers again. Sheppers, Joris Sheppers, Alex Plager, Jan Decker, Nick Greenall, Andrzej Kojewski. There's 5 of them here in our field of front riders of 13 or 14, so they've got the numbers to play with. Doubt they'll do anything too early though. Just keep an eye on them towards the later part of the race.
Van Beer's absent tonight. It's a race that's been organised in his homeland, the Netherlands.
He's obviously watching from the roadside, got his feet up, waving as the riders go past.
Van Beer's been acting as the director sportif on the road in the races recently, as Nick's informed us. Perhaps Nick's taking this role on again tonight, as he's actually on the road.
He's hitting the base of the climb now. %.
500 and a few watts there by Brian, going up over the 500 mark as the climb's digging in. Riders having to put in the extra effort to get up there. Those new to turbo trainer riding, a lot of the riders are using smart trainers where the gradient feeds back directly into the trainer and gives a real resistance to mimic the elevation that you'd be experiencing, the gradients that you'd be experiencing in real life. Joris Sheppers just off the front now, one of the Ratio Racing boys. Nice BMC time machine.
Front 4 at the moment.
Kojewski there from the Ratio Racing chasing onto his lead group of his compatriots, his colleagues there, and their team's making an effort at the front to break free. Jan Decker taking the lead and pushing the pace. Nick Greenhouse there as well. Obviously Ratio Racing have realised that their tactic is going to be to push this from the front from the early on in the race and work hard to distance the other riders. Looking at kits there, I think that's Mike who's just tagging onto the lead group of the 3 Ratio Racing riders there. It is looking like a convincing move at this moment, the breakaway of 4 riders there.
There's a bit of a split. There's a couple of guys 30 metres behind us. It's 100 metres further back to the next couple.
So Kojewski and Durand there in the next group on the road. It looks like they might just be able to catch you up. Looks like they're going to tag onto the back of you. Bash Shack is 117 meters behind these riders, so it has really, that first climb's absolutely blown the peloton apart. Fleming Back, who's quite an accomplished rider, he's further back there with Bass Shack. I doubt that those two riders are going to cover that distance, even though they are both good riders. It's a heck of a distance to make up.
You can see we're just on this false flat. I'm just trying to put in a little bit of an effort just to try and keep Krajewski. Looks like Greenall's just dropped back into that other group as well, at bay. Before we hit this next downhill.
Nick's putting in an effort now to catch back up Nick Greenhouse. He's going to be tagging back on with the with the three at the lead there. Krajewski and Duran there. They're still distanced. They look to have stabilised at around about 45 metres. It's looking questionable now whether the two of those riders working together will be able to make it up to the front four. Krajewski just putting in a sprint now.
Yeah, my concern is these three Ratio guys, they might be content just to let those two come on. They've got an extra teammate. So I'm having to work a little bit here just to keep that gap out.
There'll be a lot of working on that flat to keep the gap out, Mike. It does look like Greenhouse Sheppers have eased back slightly there and are just allowing you to perhaps burn yourself out.
Yeah, it's still a long way. Might be better off just allowing those two guys to close that gap. See, they're only a couple of seconds behind us.
Yeah, Krajewski's putting in the effort now. He's just latched onto the back. He's getting the draft. Bass Shack, fantastic ride from Bass Shack there. He looks like he's going to close that gap and bridge back onto you as well. Unsure of where Fleming Back is at this moment in the race.
Don't really need that. Come on, Ratio boys.
Fleming Back.
Got the manpower.
Fleming Back behind Bass Shack there. He's eased up. He's only doing about 3 watts per kilogram. Dropping back further there, we've got Brian Paul Padell, 9th, 10th position. Behind them, slightly further back, you've got Steve Bellio and Philippe Massé.
So Shack is now on, made it back into this group. We've gone from 4 to 7 now. You never know, might be good for me. I've got a couple of non-Ratio boys. Not, I've done it alone now, so they might give me a little bit of support.
We've got a few metres to go yet until the next climb on the road. It does look quite an extreme climb. It's fully red, so it would be a steep gradients, but only short. Fleming Back further back on the road there. He's working with Brian and Paul Padell there. 250 metres away from the lead group. It looks like everyone's just decided to take a little bit of a back seat now, with all the power bars underneath the names there going into the blue shades.
Yeah, that gap was just stabilised, coming down a little bit at 220 metres. So this front group really has eased off, and that chase group of 3 slowly taking their way back at the moment.
So again, for those unfamiliar with RGT, the efforts are shown in the coloured bars just underneath the riders' names, and also in the rider name listing on the left hand side of the screen. The blue is very easy levels, goes pale blue, darker blue, green, which is tempo, which you should be able to sustain for most of the day, yellow, which is over tempo and expected to be maintainable for 60 minutes to 90 minutes. Then you've got red, which is effort, and bright red, which is neuromuscular. Red efforts you're expected for around about 10 minutes, and neuromuscular is in the region of seconds. You can instantly tell how hard the riders are pushing. We're just getting the time gaps coming up on the screen there. There's the race group, the lead group there, got 17-second gap back to the next group on the road, which is formed up by Brian Christie, Fleming Back and Paul Padell. Realistically, the front group, seven strong riders there, they should have no problem keeping away. The breakaway should stick today.
Well, I hope so. But it's just coming under 200 metres now, that gap, so we'll just keep an eye on that. I don't think we're going to reach the climb before that gap closes up if we keep at this current pace. So we might just need a little bit of an injection of pace. If that gap gets too small, just keeping an eye on it. Actually, as I say that, Nick Green will upped it to 5 watts per kilo there. Possibly just thinking the same thing.
You've got to watch it, Mike, is where one of them might just do a little break and have his teammates sit in and make you do all the work to catch him back up again.
I know yesterday on the Tour de France there was quite a few teams that did like a 2-up attack off the front of the bunch. One of them would ride hard for about a minute, just them on the front, and their teammate then would follow, enjoy the draft, and then once that minute was up, they'd attack.
Looks very much like Jan Dekker and Nick Greenhalgh are doing this at this moment in time, with efforts of 414 watts there from Jan Dekker. Nick following through and coming up with some similar sort of powers. Where it's very important with RGT to be watching your draft efforts and making sure you're just sucking those wheels when you've got a team who you're fighting against. A little gap opened up again there. 3 riders breaking through on the front. Sorry, 4 riders there breaking through in front. Krajewski, one of the other Ratio Racing riders, has just sat up. He's making no effort to chase. I think that's Bash Shack that's just breaking free to try and catch back up with the lead group. So whether Andrzej Krajewski's blowing there or whether he's just easing. Be interested to see how Bash Shack performs later on in this race, because he's putting 2 considerable efforts now to bridge gaps. It's not easy to do. Does burn through matches quite quickly. He's putting out a consistent 450 watts here. Speeds of around about 50 kilometers per hour. Heart rate's still looking quite achievable there, 165 beats per minute. You can tell he's putting in an effort, but I think mine will be quite a lot more than that at this time.
We've just been a bit harsh on him there. We've just put in a bit of an effort just to keep him dangling for a little bit longer, make him dig a little bit deeper, burn another match. But yeah, it's now bridged across.
Dekker just slightly distanced there for a second off the back of the group. Can happen with these rapid changes in tempo. If you're not paying attention, you can just get dropped slightly. And as soon as you do lose the draft, you're at a deficit. Normally you're sending the draft with around about 200 watt saving on these sort of speeds. And as soon as you drop off that draft and you lose that saving, you have to put in that 200 watts that you were saving plus enough to catch yourself back up again. So it can be a big change, a big sort of seesaw to get yourself caught back up again. Back further to the chase group here, 22 seconds gapping now. There's 3 riders in this group: Fleming back, Paul Bedell, and I think it's Brian Christ. Brian Christ. Of those riders, I think Fleming back is the rider who's likely to win out of those 3.
Yeah, he's a strong rider, is Fleming. It's like Brzezinski's just letting Duran do all the work here. So as I say that, Brzezinski puts in a little effort and looks to try and drop Duran. Maybe just it's saved enough energy to give it a little crack, but not really pulling away from Duran just yet. They're back within 100 metres, so maybe he just sees that gap's coming down and thinks he's got an opportunity to push hard now and close it back up.
Christophe Durand, looking like he's fairly new to the ranked races on RGT. It's only 8 races on his history. He's a silver edging towards a gold categorisation. In most of the races he's attended, he's improved his rank.
Brzezinski and Durand here just come flying through. It's all back together for these 7 riders. Cheers, Antoine. Trying to do what I can without getting dropped. A bit more difficult when you've got these smaller fields. Easier to fall off the back. So try not to jump around too much.
He doesn't commit much in the last 1 kilometre, Antoine. He goes quiet then, leaves it all down to me. Andre pushing off on the front there. He's just done all that riding to catch up, and he's now putting the efforts into distance fuel as well. 330 watts off the front there, 4.5 watt per kilogram.
Yeah, looking strong.
Just showing them what speed you've got in the tank there, are you, Mike?
I was just trying to bridge across. I'd slipped to 6 or 7 metres back and I was on the front, so suddenly I'm the one who's taking all of that wind. I wanted to just bridge across, put the gap behind me, but unfortunately I overshot and ended up on the front again. But everyone's closed it back up.
Can be difficult just sitting right in behind the wheel of someone. You get to the side of them and you don't get as much draft, only about 40 watt saving. Whereas when you slot him directly behind somebody, if you can just get that sweet spot in the algorithm to get yourself in the right spot, it's 150 watt saving or more. Not too far now to this climb.
See the course. So we're going to loop round up through that little wooded area. A few hundred metres from that climb. Then we'll retrace our road a little bit, or heading back into a little bit of forest. But yeah, just trying to keep an eye on these Ratio guys. If one of them starts going up the road, the others aren't going to chase, so got to make those moves anyway. Got to be early. I'm just hitting the base of the climb then. 4% gradient for 750 metres, the road sign says.
Those gradients can sometimes be a little bit misleading. They're not always accurate for the climb that you're going to attack. Going up to 5.6, oh, cranking it up to over 8 on the gradient there. Nearly up at 9 degrees on the gradient. Everyone putting in the effort. There's lots of power going down on the road. Decker's making a break at the front. Shepard's following his wheel. Effort's up at 9.5 watts per kilogram there. Stretching this field out. Again, there's been a split in the field. Shepard's, Greenhouse and Decker forming the front group.
Whoa.
Bash Shack there, just distanced again. We'll see whether he can work to bring that back in. Easing slightly as we've crested this climb, but still putting a lot of effort in. Gapped already to Bash Shack at 90 metres.
Oh.
Well, that's how quickly it can change. Bash Shack, all that effort to bridge back. One hill climb is distanced by 110 metres and around about 5 seconds. That's just crazy how much difference that can make. But then if you're putting 9 watts per kilogram in on a climb, I suppose that's the time you're going to put that effort in and make that difference.
Yeah, my heart rate was up to 186 coming up that climb, just to make sure I stayed in this front group.
And then you sat with 3 Ratio Racing guys who are just going to sit there and wait it out until the final sprint.
We'll see, we can come back together again. We're not putting too much distance into these other guys. Another little climb again.
Again, Power's going red. Decker, Greenhouse, Shepard's all putting in the effort in. And this will be Powers of around about 9 watts per kilogram.
It's only about 1.5 to 3%, so it's a bit easier to sit on, get a bit of draft saving, because the speed is still quite high.
The chase group are putting the effort in. Bash Shack's still putting some power down, trying to make it back to you. Duran's working with him. Kujawski's just surfing the wheels, it looks like, from the time being.
Sounds good to me.
This race is done by the Ratio Racing. It's organised by Van Beers this week on one of his home grounds. He's used a local GPX of somewhere that he knows around where he lives to create this circuit. And they've used the Europe in springtime skin to give it this kind of a cobbled effect, a bit like the classics, quite green, a little bit of rain knocking around, some puddles on the floor.
Bit of rain wouldn't go amiss, cool me down.
I would say it's unseasonably warm, but it is summertime. It's just that we're not used to it, I think. The pace on the front group seems a little bit erratic, I would say. The Ratio Racing guys putting in efforts just to break the tempo up. Probably trying to dislodge you from the wheels, Mike. As soon as they see any kind of a gap, they'll all be charging to try and push you out the back of the group.
Yeah, we're still not quite halfway, another couple of kilometres. So it's still just about half the climbing. So we're still far enough out that it doesn't matter, I don't think, if those other guys come back together.
Bash Shack, Kujawski and Durant.
Oh.
So they're within spitting distance now, the chase group. Bashak's putting a little bit of an effort there, and he looks like he's going to bridge back up to your group any second. Durand, Krajowski not quite on his wheel. He looks like he's gapped them again. But on this steady climb, I think he's going to bridge back up to your group unless you put in an effort. Well, not you personally, but your group.
Yeah, tricky one for me. It might be worth letting him come back across. Give me some assistance against these three guys.
Yeah, and Shaq's back again. It's fantastic riding for Bashak. He's consistently closing down these breakaways, using a lot of matches to get back to you every single time. Jowski is in no man's land at the moment. He's not benefiting from any draft. He'd probably just let Bashak go a little bit too far then. He would have been better chasing him a little bit more closely. He's putting out 380 watts. He's got Durand on his wheel. Durand's pushing, catching back up to him now, pushing through. It looks like Durand's seen the group in front and is putting all his matches in the pot now just to catch back on.
Oh.
I'm not sure whether he'll do it. There just seems to have been a little bit of a tempo increase in the front group again. And Durand has possibly burnt everything on that effort and not made it yet. Looks like Durand is calling it a day on this chase. He's just winding it up, 135 watts. He's going to ease up and wait for the next group on the road to catch him. Krajowski looks like he's managed to make it back into the group again. 320 watts. But this gentle incline.
Like it was all or nothing for Durand. He went for it, didn't quite close it. Krajowski's just about to get on. So 4 versus 2.
Back with a third group on the road here. Got Fleming back, Paul Padell and Brian Crook. They seem to be just not so much working together as attacking each other. Fleming back, he's a regular of the TNT Omnium races and the ECKD Crit series. Oh, we have a mechanical in real life there, Mike.
Yeah, a bit of one. The chain has just dropped down into the middle ring. For the regular listeners, they'll know I don't have a front derailleur. Now a massive cadence hit me in the pack. Oh. Oh. That was caused by a little attack by the Ratio guys. I just got gapped off the back a little bit.
Doesn't sound like doesn't sound like it bodes well for the sprint there, Mike.
Ha. Yeah, well, it's been happening to Mark Cavendish. He seemed to be doing all right though. So maybe I need
back
to
on the road.
Channel my cab.
Just back on the road there with some of the guys a bit further down the road. We've got Fabio SP in 10th position. He's been riding some of the ECKD races, not quite finishing them, DNFs quite frequently, so that's dropped him down to near the bottom of the silver ranking. And we've got Pierre Mas and Stephen Bellio of the OTR Racing in 11th and 12th position. Stephen Bellio at 190 watts there, putting in a good effort. I think it's safe to say that the front group on this race is a fairly elite group. They're all in gold class and quite capable of sustained long efforts at high power.
Yeah, maybe not on days quite as hot as this. It is energy sapping. We are over halfway though. We passed the yellow banner, marked the halfway point. A nice bit of a descent at the minute. And we've probably got around about 11, 12k before the next final meaningful climb. Which is about,
I think,
crest's about 2.5k from the end, I think, Riley.
I think it might be at that point that you stop speaking then, Mike. Then that might be the last bit of commentary we hear from you when we hit that hill.
Yeah, I can imagine it's going to heat up even more once we hit that. Maybe a couple of team tactics from the Ratio guys. Have to be alert. I don't know if they're watching the stream. I don't want to give all my tactics away.
So your tactics, it's all out with 5 kilometres to go. Is that the tactic, Mike?
I'll leave it to the last 50 metres. Let them just sit on until the end. Keep them guessing.
Yeah.
Good if I got my towel with me. Wipe my brow off. Get the sweat out my eyes.
Nice tight group on the road there. Good bunch. Everyone trying to sit in and grab as much draft as they can.
Looks like Kajewski's doing quite a bit of work on the front. Oh, attack!
Decker's putting an effort. Kajewski's going with him.
Damn it. Another mechanical.
Kajewski. Mike's putting in a sprint effort here, 12 watts per kilogram to try and close them down. Greenhouse is covering Mike, sitting on his wheel, 600 watts, and we're just nearly bridging back up to the front group.
Oh.
Going by surprise, and Nick's going over the top and putting in an effort now. Not allowing Mike any time to rest here. They've seen a little bit of weakness and they're capitalising on it. They're working as a team together tonight. I'm sure they're all on race radio talking about this, talking about the gapping. Nick's continuing to apply the pressure here, 400 watt efforts. Quite a low cadence for this sort of power, in my opinion. It's
Oh.
Nick's just out there on the front on his own at the moment, dangling.
Yeah.
And what sort of a gap is it going to get to before Mike has to chase on?
Oh.
Bash Shack's going to be his only assistance from this group. The rest of the Ratio guys are going to sit on and not offer any help at all here. So already a gapping there around about 60 metres up to Nick Greenhouse from the front of the chase group. Not a massive gap, but I think the risk in the tactic here is that Mike's going to have to chase on, or Bass is going to chase on, and as soon as they make contact with Nick, one of the other Ratio Racing guys that's been sat in the wheel enjoying the draft is going to then go over the top and attack again. Kind of classic Quintana Valverde approach with a twin prong racing. Gap seems to just gradually be eking out. Not quite stabilised
yet.
Just
going at the moment. All blocking each other a little bit.
Ratio Racing definitely going for the team honours now. They're no individual pride on at stake here. They want the team to win. Nick just putting in a steady, sustainable effort here. You can see his bar's green, which means he can keep this up for around about an hour. 300 watt efforts. Looks like his cadence is raised a bit as well. He was doing 56 before. He's come up to a 75 cadence now. Heart rate of 162. You can hear Mike's turbo winding up in the background there as he's putting the effort in. Is he making an attempt to bridge? He is. You can see that Nick has seen that and he's putting the effort in to cover that attack to keep the distance constant. Mike at 430 watts, instantly covered by the Ratio Racing guys. They've closed him down, and as soon as they've reached him, they shut the power down. They're not making any effort to assist at all here. And there's Bashak coming up and over, making the attack on it again on Nick. He's the only other person in this group who's got an interest in catching up to Nick at the front. I suspect that Ratio Racing have got the Discord channel up and running here. I know I spoke to Nick earlier on in this series and he mentioned they'd got Discord working, but there was some miscommunication, but I think they've worked that out now and they've got a good team tactic going here. Again, it's just stabilised. Nick, if anything, is pulling away slightly. Mike's only choice here is to try and up it slightly and get Bashak to work with him to reel him back in. Mike putting in another effort here. It's gone up to red on his power bar. Bass following. Shepherd's closed the attack down. Bass is coming over the top now.
Go on, Bass.
Doesn't look like Bass is listening to the live stream here. Bass is shutting down as soon as he's catching Mike as well. Perhaps he's happy to race for second place.
Not getting any help from him, am I? I've not seen him go above 4.
It is great race tactics, Dame, and you can really see
there we
that
go.
working
There we
together.
go.
Bashak putting in the effort there. Mike Lister following. Shepherd's in the wheels. As soon as he's back with Bass, shuts off the power. Mike's gone over the top. See the rest of the Ratio Racing boys tucking into the wheels there. None of them helping with the attacks, but they are marking everybody down. Bashak pulling again, and Mike putting the efforts down. He's going to roll over the top of Bass, I think, here. They have started reeling Nick back in. And Mike's going to cover it now with one final attack back up to Nick. Nick's eased off. And I think the team tactic here will be that Mike will catch on, and then one of the other Ratio Racing guys will go right over the top and put in a fresh attack. Let's see if I'm right. Krajowski's winding up at the back there. We've got contact. Mike Lister back on the wheels. And that's a Ratio Racing guy. Comes straight through, straight up the front. Krajowski. Red power bar. All his matches. Getting them out, getting them burnt. That's it. Instantly, another gap of 60 metres opened up. Putting in an effort of 510 watts there. Jan Decker also breaking free. I think the Ratio Racing guys can smell blood in the water here.
I've heard about my COVID jab.
Yeah. Jan Decker's putting in an effort of 510 watts. He just shut it down there. Krajowski shut it down too as well. Mike looking precarious here.
Yeah.
Those Ratio Racing guys
I'm fading.
up at the... You've got to stay on the wheel of Nick there. Although you wonder whether Nick's just going to sit up for the good of the team now and break you out of the race. Krajowski, Decker and Sheppers at the front of the race now.
Yeah.
Bashak, again, fantastic riding. He's looking like he's going to bridge back up to these guys at the front of the race. Sheppers putting the effort down and got him doing 330 watts as Bashak just comes up to his wheel. Bashak's going to have to work very hard now covering all of these riders as they one by one will make attacks and try and animate the front of the race. There's 11 kilometres to go for these riders to break Bashak.
Yeah, it's just hard to communicate. I couldn't, get a message to Bass saying let's work together. I think we ended up fighting each other a little bit.
Yeah, it's not always obvious that the other guys, even though they're in the same kit and have got RR after the name, not everyone knows that they're on the same team and working together. Quite often in these races, even though people are on the same team, they do attack each other. But it looks like there's very much a team plan tonight from the Ratio Racing guys. And now it looks like the team plan is to leave Bashak on the front to hang himself out to dry. For those of you enjoying the scenery, you'll notice there's trees quite close to the track in high resolution, and as you go further away from the track you'll see there's quite fewer trees in the distance, and the resolution of those trees is less. That's to optimise the viewing for different platforms. Obviously if you've got all high resolution stuff all the way throughout the race world, it puts a lot of effort on the GPU, the graphics processor, so they make the graphics in the distance a little blurrier, so it saves energy for the computer so it can concentrate on the important bits near to you. Makes the program easier to run on lots of different devices. RGT runs quite comfortably on the new Apple TV devices and also will run on an iPad, one of the more modern iPads. You don't have to have a top-of-the-range gaming rig or gaming laptop to run it. It's quite flexible. Shaq again is taking the lead here. He's still not realised, I think, that the three riders behind him are all racing as a group, as one unit. Unless he's just full of confidence, he's got fresh legs today and he's happy they'll be able to go all the way to the end and beat them in a stand-up sprint. Those four riders working together at the front managed to gap to Mike and Nick Greenhouse. 21-second gap on the road there. As again, Krajowski and Sheppers putting in an effort at the front. Sprinting speed around about 9 watts per kilogram there.
Yeah, we're in our own little race, me and Nick. Did his turn on the front. Set it up for the Ratio guys.
Still 9 kilometres to go, Mike. You can all change.
I'm determined to beat Nick after the pain he's put me in.
You're going to save it all for the sprint on the road now.
I don't know, we'll see. Got that hill.
We all heard that you had a mechanical. We'll accept that as responsible.
And the jab. Don't forget the jab.
Definitely the jab,
I don't know
yeah.
if I mentioned that.
ZMS live stream just showing us the first person view there. You can have several different views of the road and the world around you with RGT. You can have first person view, third person view where you sit just behind your own avatar. It can give you a little bit of a wider field of view than you'd normally have. And you can also have the helicopter view, which can take you right up above the riders. And then there's race view, which you're just getting a little bit of an example of now. And you can also have the motorbike view as well, which we're probably all fairly familiar with watching the Giro d'Italia, RGT and Tour de España.
There's no chance of doing an Ala Philippe crashing into the back of the motorbike.
Well, a few riders do that. Chris Froome did that as well, didn't he, on the Angler route?
That's the one when he had to do his little run when he broke his bike. Was it that time?
That was the one, yeah, we had a little jog. Just thought you'd do a little bit of a duathlon.
I'm doing a duathlon, I'm going to be swimming in a minute. This sweat keeps building up. Almost around my ankles.
We've just got the Ratio guys. Ratio Racing guys are at the front animating it again with Shepherd and Krajewski opening a gap up again to Bashak. Bashak, fantastic riding. I can't believe how many matches that man's got, continually closing down these attacks. Just as he's bridging back on, Shepherd puts in a bit more of an effort.
And they've still got a couple of kilometres before that final climb. In a group that small, that's going to be the decider, I think.
.9 kilometres left to go. 201 metres of climbing so far. Then we've got 33 metres left on this last hill. Fabio, the Brazilian rider, back in 7th place in no man's land. And then in 8th, 9th and 10th we've got Brian Krug, Fleming back and Paul Fidel. And then we've got Pierre Mas and Stephen Bellio filling in at 11 and 12th position. They're just having little battles on the road between themselves now. These groups are formed. It looks like in the main they're working together to just complete the race, but normally you'll see an attack in the last couple of kilometres, and I think we'll see it from these small groups on that final climb, just to separate the winners from each of these races within a race.
Yeah, I'm sure the front four are going to be all out for those guys, isn't it, at the front? Me and Nick, maybe we'll just mark each other.
So 33-second gapping back to your group, Mike, but they do seem to have eased up a lot at the front of this race. There is no efforts being put in here. They're all, it would appear, looking at each other and waiting for somebody to make a move. Perhaps the race radio is broken down at this point.
I think they're not far out from that climb, so they might be just looking to make sure they're not in the red before they hit the base of the climb. Make sure they've got a little bit of space to within their ability, within their legs, their power output, their heart rate, just to up it when it hits that climb. You don't want to be on the edge at the bottom of that. It's only going to get harder as you go up, so might well just have that in the back of their minds at this stage and just keeping it easy, catching the breath before the final attacks begin.
Yeah, they're just working around about 150 watts. Cadence is around about 60 for Andrzej Kujawski here. He's just soft pedaling, I think, to stay in the group. His heart rate's down at 130. Bashak similar, around about 130 on the heart rate. So we saw Bashak going up to around about 170 when he was under strain earlier on. Jan Dekker with a heart rate of 150 there.
Well, I'm at 156 and I'm half a kilometre further back, so I don't know what that says about my heart rate.
Obviously that's COVID jab related, Mike. You've definitely been handicapped tonight with your mechanicals, your COVID jab. Couldn't be any more things going wrong for you.
Well, I do have a naturally high heart rate. I was up at 186 on that climb. I know some of these other guys it's a bit low. It's all very personal. But I'm sure mine's going to go through the roof again in a minute.
Yes, Antoine, I totally agree. It's been fantastic racing by the Ressia Racing guys. They've played a team game down to the T, and I can't wait to see how it plays out with these last three riders up against Bashak. They've made a selection, and you would think that the final will go to one of the Ressia Racing guys. Definitely have made it an easier race for themselves in the way they've raced tonight.
Yeah, looking at this climb, it's mostly yellow, a little bit of orange, so that helps the Ratio team of three, because it means there will still be quite a lot of draft benefit. If it was a bit steeper, and it'd be almost every man for himself.
Mike, are you watching?
That climb and, yeah, he's gone. Cheeky bugger. I wonder if he was watching the stream and listening to me talking and not watching.
Nick there, he stole a march on you, 540 watts. He's opened a gap up, so it's only about 30 metres. Mike's closing that down very quickly. Mike with a power there at 420. I wonder if he's going to be cheeky, go straight over the top and make Nick pay a little bit for that. 570 watts. And Nick's had to put a bit more of an effort in there. Mike just feeling the pain, but he's putting some effort in to make Nick get out of his saddle and sprint to catch him back up. It's not making it easy for him. It's been a consistent effort, over 500 watts here from Mike. The lead group is on this final climb, they're nearly cresting it. The three of them have worked hard to get away from Bashak. They've opened up a small gap. It's only about 12 metres on the road. But Dekker, Scheppers and then Kujawski, it's important for these first two riders on the road to keep the effort now and keep Bashak distanced. The gap in now around about 30 metres back to Bashak. Jan Dekker's keeping the effort on, Scheppers just in his wheel. Kujawski looks like he might have blown there, he's eased up. Scheppers and Dekker are going to take this all the way down to the line. Jan Dekker at 350 watts. 3 kilometres left to go. Kujawski's still not quite giving up. Scheppers and Dekker at the front there. Will this be a battle between the two of them for the lead, for the win? Bashak in 4th position. Not quite onto the descent yet. 180 watts. Kujawski, 3rd place. Wonder if his two Ressia Racing buddies will ease slightly now that they can see the Bashak's distanced, so that Kujawski can link back on. And just as I say that, Dekker and Scheppers have started putting the hammer down, and they are motoring now. 2.3 kilometers left to go. Shepherd and Decker just looking at each other, it would appear. I think this is perhaps a battle between the two of them now. They know it's a team win, so they're going to be testing each other to see who can get the win between them. Very evenly matched, these two riders. Both fantastic amount of power. I think Joris Shepherd was one of the first people to do an Everesting on RGT before it was recognised by the Hells 500. Very good climber as well as good sprinter. All-round rider. Kujawski looking like he's in a solid third place, got 50 metres over Bash Shack. With only 1.4 kilometres left to go in this race. Ben Hammond Phillips, come on Racio. Let's not Shack get the final sprint. I don't think he's going to. I think he's been distanced there, Ben. Unless he has got a massive book of matches, he's not going to be getting back from this. Have I spoken too soon? Under the Flamme Rouge. Looks like Shack's putting in a consistent effort here, whereas the Racio Racing guys are all putting in erratic moves. And he's just looking like he has managed to bridge back on at the back here. Decker Shepherd's opening up an early sprint here. 700 metres to go. Can they carry this all the way to the line? Shack's made it up into third position. He's passed Andrzej Kujawski. Decker, 450 metres to go. 9 watts per kilogram sprinting. He's eased up again now. Shack's just keeping the power on at about 5 watts per kilogram. Looks like Decker's going to take the win quite comfortably here. 40 metre gap over Shepherd's, next man on the road. And then 60 metres back to Bash Shack. Decker putting the final sprint and make it definite. 8 watt per kilogram coming over the line. 60 metre gap back to Shepherd's. Shepherd's comes over with Shack only a couple of seconds behind. 4.4 watts per kilogram. Kujawski coming back over the line. Kujawski just rolls over the line in fourth there. Just overtaken by Bash Shack in the last little bit of the race. And we've got Fabio SP on the road here coming in to finish. Didn't notice what happened there, but I thought he was behind Nick and Mike on the road. He must have put in a great effort to overhaul both of them.
Yeah, you can say that.
What did happen, Mike? Were you and Nick a bit complacent there in watching who was overtaking you?
Wow, he just came up that hill at a very consistent, strong effort. Rode past us. Nick jumped on for a bit, but got dropped on the downhill. And he's not even hanging around, is he? That Fabio, he's gone.
Gone already. Nick Greenhalgh come over the line in 6th there. Mike Lister, very old Mike Lister coming over in 7th. Not his night tonight. Mechanicals, COVID jabs, hot sweaty garage.
Can only race what's in front of you, and didn't have it tonight. So yeah, hard. Racing against 4 guys working together, just the 2 of us, and Shaki obviously managed to stick away for a bit longer, but then it was 3 versus 1 and they did the damage to him as well. He did well to take 3rd place, but yeah, great tactics by the rest of the boys. Well done to those guys.
Fantastic. We've got Fleming back coming in 8th position. He's pulled away from the group, which had Paul Bedell and Brian in. He's gapped them by 150 metres, which I wasn't surprised about with Fleming back. He's a very strong rider. I think he just made a little bit of a mistake tactically earlier on to be dropped out of the lead group.
Yeah, not surprising to see Fleming pull away from those other 2 on that final climb.
Just rolling it home now, no need for a sprint.
Nick Greeno in the in-game chat there just saying, finally got me off the podium. I was a bit cheeky in my response, just saying, took a team to do it. But yeah, good riding from all those guys. They're all strong. So even without them being in a team, they'd given everyone a good run for their money today. Good solid hour of racing. Oh.
Pierre Mas coming in at 11 here. He's putting in an effort to distance himself from Stephen Bellio. Just coming up on the last climb. See whether Pierre Mas can make this stick or whether Steve's just going to come up with a slightly steadier tempo and pass him as we come up to the top of the climb.
Ooh. Thanks to those guys that are watching. Thanks for tuning in and commenting on the feeds. I did a little poll on the YouTube, and I said, "Who's your money on today?" Mike Lister, Alex Plager, Nick Greenall, Fleming back. And the fans were saying Nick. I only had the option of 4 riders, couldn't get all the Rastro boys on there. Nick was the best placed out of those 4 riders, so viewers have done well there.
Was Alex Plager did not start tonight?
No, he was there. He went out quite hard, I think. He set up the early Rastro attacks. Not quite sure what happened to him. Ben Phillips as well saying there is no Rastro team radio. They're just like the Borg. They're all in sync. A bit of French love there from Antoine to Pierre, cheering on his countryman. Have a nice spring.
Looking like
get some fluids back on.
Looking like Pierre Mas is coming over in 11th here to take the win from his little group with Stephen Bellio. Strong efforts by both those riders on the road.
Yeah, good to see. That was all the way down. You know, people don't give up. You've always got someone to chase, someone to have a little battle with.
Yeah, I quite often find myself losing the lead group, and then I'll set myself a target of a rider who I know from the racing who's quite similar to me in their finishing positions, and set them as my target for beating them rather than getting myself onto the podium. I'm not too competitive with the elite guys. Well, not too competitive, that's being generous. I'm not competitive with the elite racers in RGT. So just setting yourself a target can be something that's mentally achievable, and it's a lot more fun to race against something that's achievable than trying to kill yourself to get to the top step on the podium.
Just a little bit of virtual cycling news. You might have seen that I was racing on Zwift on Thursday. last week in the Dirt Doozy. And if you were watching that, you would have seen that I crossed the line first, but then got a cone of shame due to an in-game bug, which meant that if you completed that final sprint in a certain time, if you were below that time, then you get disqualified from the race. It's a bug that was in the game, nothing to do with my setup, but it looks like a new update has just dropped on Swift, which has fixed that for future races. So I have to go back.
Just back to the racing on the road, Mike.
That again.
Just back to the racing on the road there. Pierre Mas just putting in a great effort going up the incline there, going up the gradient to distance Stephen Bellio. Stephen Bellio, slightly steadier tempo going up the climb. On the descent, he's reeled Pierre Mas back in, and we've got a real battle going on now for 11th and 12th position on the road. Neither of these riders wants to be the Lantern Rouge on the road, so they are battling it out to get to the line first. Stephen Bellio's on the front here with Pierre Mas sat in his wheel, but just from the little bit of an effort there, it looks like Stephen Bellio might have more raw watts on the flat to take this to the line. Be interesting to see who does win this final sprint with Pierre Mas sat in his wheel, using Stephen Bellio as his lead out man. Sorry for interrupting there, Mike.
Nah, no worries, yeah. We're focusing on the action. We'll talk about the update another time.
So in short, you were disqualified and you complained. .550 metres left to go on the road. See which one of the riders opens up the sprint first. Antoine Renault sending a little bit of loving for Pierre Mas there, who's gone first. 320 metres to go. It's going to be a long sprint here for Pierre Mas. Stephen Bellio, it's on his draft. Up to 11 watts per kilogram there. He's just come up to him, shoulder to shoulder. Pierre Mas is keeping the power down. Stephen Bellio sitting back in on the draft. He's going to have a second attempt at it as he gets close to the line. Looks like Pierre Mas has just nailed it. Stephen Bellio coming in the last position on the road there. A little bit of excitement for the last part of the race.
Yeah, good to see that all the way through. We really thought Stephen was maybe going to come back round there. He just sat back into that draft. Thought he might just have a final second bite at the cherry, but yeah, just wanted to hold him off. Would have been heartbreak, I think, for Pierre having dropped Stephen on the time to then being pipped in the sprint.
So Bashak there just holding the Ratio Racing boys off a stacked podium, pushing Andrzej Kajowski back into 4th position at the last little bit there. Some great riding by all of the Ratio Racing guys who are working as one as the Borg to distance all the other riders in that race. Be interesting to see how they use those team tactics in some of the racing in the Ikigai race series that's coming up.
Yeah, that's starting on this Sunday with the 56km road race.
Interestingly there, the winner Jan Decker is coming at 3.52 watts per kilogram. It's by far not the highest on the race there, with a Fabio SP coming in at 4.57 watts per kilogram. Well, only managing a position of 5th, so it just shows how much the draft and positioning on the road does make a difference to how well you can race.
Yeah, he spent a lot of time on his own, did Fabio. He fell out of the pack, and there's quite a lot of solo riding there, not working with anyone else. So having to put in the higher watts, not getting any draft saving.
and Mike Lister with only 3.24 watts per kilogram there.
Yeah, a bit below what I can do, but it was hard racing today. Slightly below my best, but it was good all the same. Good racing, exciting racing, hard work. So take a little bit of a rest now, a bit of recovery. Maybe see what's coming up later on in the week. Thanks a lot everyone for tuning in, and I'll let you wrap up, Riley.
Great racing, Mike. Shame to see how those mechanicals that just put you off your step a little bit during the race. But great to see you racing all the same and managing to commentate as you go along. It's a skill that I'm far from mastering. So just in wrap up, we've got Jan Decker and Joyce Shepherd's best shot forming the top three on the podium. Jan Decker and Joyce Shepherd's from Ratio Racing. They're great teamwork from the Ratio Racing guys. It's their race that's organised by Nick Greenhouse, and it was Van Bear's race series tonight. And we'll catch you next time. Great racing, everybody.